Time management and time planning can be linked to personal time, how you manage your own time, your team's time, the enterprise, time of your enterprise, and it can also apply to organizations and businesses, whether small or medium. But typically, this would apply to slightly larger organizations, MNCs, corporates, but the principles can be applied to any function in management. So let's look at how most corporations globally are organized. Today, in a flattened organization, you may have just three levels, but in a typical sense, we may let's look at an organization which has seven levels. So these are the Roman letters on your left bottom of the screen, one going up to seven. On the top, you see six equivalent entries. So the one we will ignore. So it is really the Roman letters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these correspond to the six levels on top, just to avoid confusion. Because at the level one, Roman letter one, quality and hands-on and getting the job done, execution or delivery at an operational T&M basis, it's almost like minimum wage or call it roster management, minimal uh, wages, roster management, nominal role, contract employees. So everybody is doing the work at level one. So that does not come into a time management category. They just do that from a okay. The very next level moves to service, which is equivalent to the supervisor on top. So somebody has to supervise this work, decide which jobs get done, exception handling. So the supervisory is the first level of management, which is two service, the service layer, two service layer. Again, this is broadly we look at it as a return of one-on-one in the sense that the supervisor's cost and time and effort is spread across the number of people he or she supports. So if there are 10 people below that person, you could spread the cost of that 10 people into that one person, the one person into the cost of 10. So that's when it comes to costing, that comes into play. In time management, so the person, that one person, supervisory person, is ensuring that the output of the 10 is happening, ensuring quality is there. So if you look at a model like the overall equipment efficiency, simple model, OEE, world-class manufacturing, the supervisory rules will be very clear. Labor management is very clear. Uh, the example could be if 10 people can dig 10 feet in 4 days, the typical school problem, 10 boys. So similarly, uh, an equivalent can be given. So how much time will it take for five people in 5 days to dig the same length of ditch? So it's similar to those kind of problems which the supervisor will ensure happens. Now we move to the next levels, which is the level three: good practice, strategic development, strategic intent, global corporate citizenship, and global pre-science, corporate pre-science. So these are higher level goals, conceptual goals which build over this. We will look at this at a three level layer in another video, but for the moment, let's look at just the time factor and how much time you should spend. Now, the time you spend in a month or a week, we will do it at a transactional level. So, in a week, we may be spending 40 hours a day, typically monthly global 165 hours a month. We'll keep that as a benchmark, 165 hours per month, or we will look at it as 40 hours per week. If you're in the manufacturing, 48 hours per week. But you have to keep in mind that on an annualized basis, there becomes leave, replacement, idle strength, bench strength, and things like that. So let's not look at it at a large level. It can be incorporated. In fact, in Klextra, we have quantified, measured, and put all this into a model that can be built across, which is built across the time management platform in Klextra. In Klextra, we also have all this data the incoming data is from timesheets based on activities of individuals. So we do have an implementation and execution of this plan. So let's just look at this planning here first. So at the top, what are we saying is that a very senior level person, the top. Now let's not get into president, vice president, GM, divisional manager, team manager. It could be anything. It could be CEO, CXO, vice president, regional managers. It could be anything. Typically, we are talking about a seven-layer organization where the top first six are actively involved in the management. That means they execute other people's work. They're not themselves doing the work. So that is a inherent broad implication in all of this. So the supervisor at the bottom is planning about 38% of the week. That means we now assume 48 hours or whatever you want to assume, 40 hours a week or 35 hours if you're in Europe or whichever country is applicable. So let's stick with 40 hours. So 38% of 40 hours of the time of the supervisor is spent on today getting that work done. The supervisor has to plan this week ahead, the next week, okay, spends about 15% of the 40 hours of a week looking at next month, what happens. So 15% of 40 hours in a week implies 6 hours. 6 hours uh, in a week, the supervisor is thinking about what happens next month. It could mean manpower planning, it could be reskilling of people, it could be timesheets, what orders are going to come up. So you're looking ahead. So likewise, the supervisor is spending 5% of those 40 hours on looking ahead for the next quarter. A supervisor might not think about next year, very little about next year, and perhaps not at all about 2 years or 10 years ahead. Now, you can go through these numbers. So, a team manager who's got a number of supervisors reporting to that person, and up the hierarchy if you go. So, the top manager, CEO, the strategic board level decisions making, maybe 5 years, 5% of your time may go up to 10 years ahead. So, you're thinking ahead what happens next year. You're not really concerned about today because you've already done that. And you're not really concerned about either a week or even your month ahead. You're definitely thinking about the quarter ahead. And if you're a listed company, the tendency is to spend a lot more time on that quarter, which is part of the problems. Because when you're spending too much time on what has to be achieved in the next quarter, then you're not looking ahead at 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. And that's where many corporations fail. And it's an inherent problem of being a listed company and quarterly results and pressure from shareholders. The pandemic and COVID has thrown a lot of these things into chaos, but perhaps it's even more important to get your longer term plan. These things are going to happen, so you planning ahead is important. Some industries like aircraft, Boeing and Airbus, for example, are definitely planning even more than 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead. There are plans about what's going to happen 15 years ahead, and that's the way it's planned. So you can look at how this can be implemented. We have a set of a matrix where based on your time is your budgeting. This should be broadly your budgeting of time. And then if timesheets are input based on this level, this kind of organizational roles, organizational design with 7 layers, we have roles within Klextra. So you can map these onto your timesheet. So there you'll get your actual and then your gap, and then you can improve your time management as a corporation. Now, the same thing applies as an individual. If you're an individual in any company and you want to benefit from this, you can do your time management and planning like as it's given here. A best simple way to implement is to just look at what did I do last week? Did I manage that week? I have a plan for this week. How is it going this week? This is today, and the tomorrow being then week after. So we are talking about 3 weeks. Last week, this week, and next week, and that's the best way you can quickly manage this even without a platform as we have in Klextra, which is meant for people with 250 people or more uh, to be able to implement this by themselves.